So by now, everyone should know the company Moondrop. Usually, they are pretty big into the IEM game with the Aria, Snow Aria, and some other ones. But they also started to make over-ear headphones. And a while ago, they released the Venus and the Void. At least the Venus was kind of good received. The Void reviews were kind of mixed there, but still they left an impression there, and I was pretty curious when they released their newest model, which is a close back, and it's called Joker, and it's really cheap for being a reference headphone from a well-known company. This is just like 70 or 80 bucks, so it should be pretty interesting for all people who maybe want to start with the whole audio thing, or who just want a cheap close back headphone. I've listened to it for quite some time, and in this review I will tell you everything I think about the Joker. So let's start with the build quality. The Joker is an extremely light, mostly plastic construction, besides the sliders and the inner headband, I think, which are made out of metal to give them some stability here. It does feel cheaper than the plastic that, for example, Sennheiser uses, even in their cheaper open bags. But it's still good enough, especially for the price you have to pay for these. They are a goddamn fingerprint magnet though, especially the ear cups, which is somewhat annoying. Yeah, you can see, it just looks disgusting. Yeah, it's just the damn plastic here. It does not really feel that good. Talking about the ear cups, you only have a little bit of swivel, and they basically do not move more than this. Like, obviously you can do this here, but otherwise it's just really not a lot of movement there, which will be a problem with comfort for quite a lot of people, I think. And I think the overall build is pretty similar to the Moondrop Void, which is funny because that one is nearly like 3 times the price of the Joker. I did not buy or try the Void, but looking at the reviews, it looks pretty similar to this one. Cable inputs are on both sides, and you get a pretty good cable here. It's really nicely braided and reminds me of a really good IEM cable, which makes sense since they are mostly IM making company or whatever, and they're used to making good cables. It is somewhat microphonic though. Like, this part here is fine, but if this here brushes against you, which it does not do really often, so it's not really a problem, but if it does, you can hear it, and it's not quite. Comfort is a weird case with these, but let's start with the good things here. Since they are really light, you won't have any issues with them creating any painful hotspots on your head or just being kind of heavy. The material they used for the ear cups and for the padding on the headband is some kind of fabric, but it does not feel scratchy to me and is soft enough. You have some kind of fake leather here on the outside, I guess for tuning purposes, and it's kind of perforated here, but on the inside it's the same fabric that's on the headband. It's also soft enough to not cause any pain around your ears or put like a lot of pressure there. It's fine there. The sliders also can be extended quite far, so these will fit smaller and bigger heads all the same. But what's so weird about them? At first, I mentioned that these are similar to the overall construction to the Moondrop Void, where people criticized the often non-existing seal because of the also non-existing movement of the ear cups. And it's just the same with the Joker. The fit always feels kind of wrong. Like, together with the pretty low clamping force, the Joker just does not really line up with my ears and the shape of my face. It always feels like it's kind of open on the back and on the bottom. That does not mean they are uncomfortable, but it is something that I only experienced with like cheap headsets before, and I just do not really like it. It's just a weird thing because they always feel like they're just sitting on your head. They are still comfortable. You can wear these for a long time. I just do not really like this feeling, and yeah, and since people criticized this with the void, it just instantly hit me. Oh, that's how the void must have felt with the bad seal and everything. So sound wise, this one kind of follows a weird trend some of the latest Moondrop releases are showing, namely being really bass light and having a big boost in the upper mid-range and to a lesser extent boosted treble. For example, the new Starfield 2, one of their latest IEMs, has a similar sound profile and wasn't really well received because it's just kind of unpleasant to listen to. And there's also the Stellaris, that one is a little bit older, but it's a Moondrop's planar IEM, and that one has also kind of a thinner, more treble heavy sound. But the whole sound signature of the Joker aims at achieving the most clarity without being annoying to listen to, which is a difficult thing because there's such a small gap between, oh yeah, it sounds so clear and so good, and oh no, I don't want to listen to that anymore. I think the sound here will be more divisive and the love or hate thing. And it is being compared to the Sennheiser HD 600 because of its clear and yeah, let's just say neutral sound. Moondrop actually printed the frequency response graph on the back of the package here, and I really have to include more of these graphs in future. I will print these out and then while talking I will show these so you can like follow them with your eyes and ears. What are we seeing here? You can see there is the black one is kind of the house curve that Moondrop uses. I guess it's just to see where the headphone stands. And you can see that it has just a small boost there in the there in the sub bass, and then it rolls off in the mid range, and then it goes up into the ear gain, and then goes down into the treble. So that's the house curve. And then of course we have the bluer turquoise, how do I pronounce it? It doesn't matter. Which is the Moondrop Joker. And you can instantly see that there's a huge roll off in the lower to the mid bass. You can already see this will sound somewhat bass-like. There's a little bit of mid bass, but not a lot. It's still really, really neutral. And then you have basically a flat mid range, and then it goes up there into the upper mid range, which has quite some boost, as does the treble here. You have to see one of these peaks sometimes is not really the sound you're hearing, but the device which they use to measure these curves. With treble from 8 to 9,000 hertz on, you really have to listen for yourself, because it could be that it's the measurement device, could also be that it really is treble peak there. But yeah, everything below 8,000-9,000 hertz should be really accurate here. This is just for you to see what I'm talking about in the next few minutes. But let's start with the bass. Like I said, it is pretty bass light. You basically get no lower or sub bass, and the bass that's there is mostly between the mid and the upper bass, which to be honest sounds pretty anemic bass wise. So it's all pretty tight, and because it's a close back, it is still amplified a little, so you do get some punch here because of the little mid bass and upper bass. I really don't want to say emphasis there, but at least you can hear it. A lot of bass in various music genres and songs is just straight up missing. Like drums and electronic music sound pretty weak, same as like deeper male voices. It sounds pretty raw. So to say, like bass guitars are more growling, kind of sounds like when you turn up the mids and the treble at the bass guitar amplifier. But don't get me wrong, that's not something that Moondrop not intended to do. They were making a neutral headphone, and they like tuned the bass back on purpose. And it will find its fans, I guess. It's not like it sounds bad. It's just not, it does not fit with some music. And if you just, if you're a bass fan, or if you just want to have like a bass that has at least some presence there. But yeah, this is not what they intended to do with the Joker. Also, there's a downslope after the upper bass, which means you do not have a lot of lower mid-range, which cleans up the sound nicely, but it's but it also makes it sound pretty thin. Together with the missing lower bass, it sounds like what you would expect when you hear neutral headphone. It fits right into the category of the HD 600, the AKG 702, and all these things where people are saying, well, this is kind of bass light and you tune up everything below 100 hertz. This kind of fits right into there. Male vocals also sound somewhat hollow because like there's the body there is just somewhat missing. After the mid-range, that again is kind of flat there, shoots up again into the upper mid-range, which has a pretty strong boost, which fits the narrative that it sounds like the HD600, because that's what that one is also famous for, like, you know, giving an emphasis on vocal recognition and everything. But what does that mean as a whole? There's a lot of attack in instruments like guitars, strings, and especially female voices. The Joker actually manages to do that without being too harsh to my ears, which is kind of remarkable if you look at that graph I just showed you. Like, I was expecting way worse. Instruments here actually sound nice, like besides the missing body and just the fatness and punch there. Yeah, there's just some general weight of the overall sound missing. But the detail here and the separation is pretty good. Again, it aims at delivering a clean sound. So it's actually doing pretty well here. Like sometimes when you have de-emphasized mid-range instruments, especially like guitars, will sound kind of empty. Like this is when people are saying it's kind of a little bit plasticky. It just sounds more artificial. You do not have this with the Joker. It sounds really real again, besides the missing body, but otherwise sounds fine. The treble is also fairly well balanced. It is bright, but I do not hear overly sibilant vocals or piercing snares or cymbals, again, which I did not expect looking at that graph. It's also fairly airy, which like opens up the sound and the stage, but the focus is still the upper mid-range here. And I do have to admit, I somehow like the sound signature here. Not because I enjoy every song with the Joker, but because they actually tried something and it somehow works well enough to keep me interested in hearing music. On the technical side, they again sound very open with a pretty wide stage for a close-back headphone, but the even more noticeable thing here is the imaging. It's pretty good for music, like especially if you look at the price here, but it's fantastic for gaming when it comes to gunshots and footsteps. Like, damn, like the directional audio was really good for being like a 70, 80 euro headphone. Like I could even feel the depth somewhat, like the distance between me and what's happening, which is something a lot of headphones are struggling with. And I think that's because there is like a big emphasis on the frequencies that you are hearing when you hear footsteps and gunshots here. Obviously, a headphone will show you the differences between like 10 meters and 50 meters, so to say, but it gets more difficult when the distances are closer together. And I thought the Joker did pretty well here. Obviously, you cannot have everything. There's basically no bass in games, which makes them sound pretty boring. And I can imagine, because of the dip in the bass and the just lower mid-range that is in contrast to the upper mid-range, like not really emphasized, you will miss out some things that you would still hear with a different headphone. So in conclusion, what is there to say about the first close-back headphone from Moondrop? I do think it's an interesting approach when it comes to clarity, because you will get it here. I actually enjoyed listening to music with these, although I can imagine a lot of people not liking it that much. And again, it's not made to let you enjoy music. I have my issues with the way people use the word neutral and how it's used in the audio world, because actually neutral should mean that most frequencies are on the same, like emphasized in the same way, and not like there's no bass and there's more upper mid-range. But that's how it was used in the past, I guess. These do remind me of a budget close-back version of at least the HD600, and although there are of course noticeable differences here, they are worth a try. The comfort issue is a pretty big thing for me though. I just do not like having these on my head. Even though nothing hurts, even after hours, it's not my cup of tea here. Also for directional audio, these are better than a lot of gaming headsets in that price range. So if you're like into competitive stuff and you find these comfortable, you should really take a look at these. That's it for this review. I hope you liked it, and if you did, then do what you want, because begging for likes and subscriptions is stupid. Have a nice day.